Lorenzen Wright had dug himself a grave and filled it with bad choices. Divorced, broke, and soon to be gunned down in cold blood during a trip back to Memphis.
Georgetown 911, where's your emergency? Hello?
They are words of panic. There's some cursing on there, and you hear gunshots, as many as 10, 11 gunshots. And this is, you know, him getting murdered.
Hello?
I don't have nothing but gunshots.
Hello? Hello?
It feels like he really didn't know what was happening until that moment.
Right, that's what I think. I think he had no idea.
The call was picked up by a 911 dispatcher in Germantown, and they never pursued it immediately.
What do you mean they didn't pursue it? It's still a shooting.
It's a shooting, but they didn't know it was a shooting. They tried to trace the call, and they couldn't. And they just somehow just dropped the ball. They should have alerted Memphis.
It was an astounding and reckless error, one that hurt the subsequent investigation badly. Once Memphis police were notified, they traced the call and found the body in a remote meadow. Unfortunately, it was 9 days after the murder.
Whoever did it had a 9-day head start. You know, if they could have found the body in that night, you know, the trail's much fresher. He's been laying 9 days in 100-degree heat in Memphis, and the body is just severely decayed at that point.
And we'll just go wherever the investigation leads us. So we're not ruling in, we're not ruling out.
What clues existed were weak. Shira told police Lorenzen left her house that night with a box of drugs and a man she didn't know.
She mentioned that he was going to flip something for $115,000.
There was some speculation that Lorenzen got tangled up with the local cartel.
We had read some about him selling cars to some drug guys, so we just thought that was it. We was like, oh my God, what did he get involved in?
But there was no direct evidence linking Lorenzen to drug dealing. Whatever the motive, police believe the former NBA star was double-teamed that night. How many shooters?
The autopsy reports and the police have said that there were 2 different shell casing types, or 2 different calibers.
9 days lost and not a tip or clue that sticks. Nothing more irritating for detectives than to have to put the case on ice.
That was the frustrating thing, especially for Lorenzen's mother, Deborah. Just this agonizing questioning of, you know, who did this and why, and you just don't get those answers.
I really need your help, people. Come on, tell us something.
Then 5 years after her husband's murder, Shira Wright does something unexpected. She pens a salacious novel, one seemingly based on her life with Lorenzen. It's called Mr. Tell Me Anything.
The character, I guess he would be the antagonist in the book, a basketball player whose name in the book is Mr. Tell Me Anything. You know, he so closely resembles Lorenzen in that he grew up in Mississippi, came up to Memphis to play basketball, made the pros.
But the novel covers so much more. It seems to tell the real-life story of an unfaithful marriage, including characters like Honey Blonde and Ride or Die Chick.
The theme that comes through is that of a very embittered woman.
Mark Paraskia is an investigative reporter for Memphis newspaper Commercial Appeal. He met with Shira at a local restaurant to talk about her book.
They're very graphic scenes, and again, she catches her husband cheating with another woman in the act of it, and the other woman, I think she calls her Miss Honey Blonde in the book, she runs into a bathroom, and Shira comes and kicks the door in and proceeds to beat her up, like is whacking her on the head and all that.
The words read like cheesy pulp fiction. His face was all adorned in bright red blood and hers in black because of the smudged mascara and tears. They were even now. She was done. His money was poisonous. In the book, Shira's character is fat-shamed, beaten, and even considers suicide over repeated infidelities on the part of the NBA player she's married to.
She said she struck him with keys, like had keys in a fist and punched him in the face and drew blood. So I asked her, I said, did this really happen? And she says, oh yeah, that happened.
Now, Mark is wondering if this book of fiction is based on a true story. He changes the subject to her husband's murder.
Do you have any idea who did this, or?
I don't know.
I gotta ask you this, but I mean, did you have anything to do with his murder or his disappearance?
I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm an author, and the police should find his killer. I'm a minister of the Lord, and I've never been in any type of trouble or anything. I'm a mother, an author, and a wife.
And in fact, Shira had become an associate minister at Mount Olive Church. But it's possible her brand of worship includes a certain moral flexibility when it comes to the truth. Remember her account to police? That Lorenzen had a box of drugs and a friend she didn't recognize?
And I never said box of drugs. You can write that because that's not true.
What did you say?
I just said he had a box.
And they added the part about the drugs, I guess. Did you tell them the first time that he was at your house and he left with somebody that you didn't know?
I never told them who he left with because I didn't see that. And so that would be an untrue statement.
There are accounts that you told the police a few weeks before this that 2 or 3 guys came up to the house looking for him and they had guns. Do you remember that? Or?
No, I don't remember. I mean, I try not to even think about things like that.
She was asked directly, did you have anything to do with it? And I thought it was interesting, never once did she say no. She just kept repeating, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm an author.
Yeah, and I saw that interview. I'm like, huh. When I saw that, I'm like, wow. Come on, Sarah.
But here's where Shira's unflinching audacity will drop your jaw.
She told me in the interview that she was working on a sequel, and the sequel was going to be called The Whole Nine. And that's where I said, okay, this character in this book, Mr. Tell Me Anything, is he murdered? And she says, oh yes, he is. And that's what the sequel is going to be about.
It was difficult to discern whether Shira was just toying with Mark and even police. A sordid book and conflicting statements do not make a murderer, or at least one you can convict. In the meantime, Shira has collected on $1 million+ life insurance policy, and in less than a year, she has just about spent it all. Lorenzen's dad, Herb, is concerned about the children's welfare. He takes Shira to court.
Prudence demands that you spend the money in accordance with what's in the best interest of the children. If you buy pizza, you don't buy steak, or maybe you buy a hamburger.
Herbert Wright tried to get $1 million a couple of years ago. He didn't get it then. He's back for a second bite at the apple now.
Shira's behavior, no doubt, suspicious. If it were a TV drama, perhaps she'd get arrested and tried. But this is real life, and so far no one is confident that any case is provable beyond a reasonable doubt. Coming up, now it's 7 agonizing years without justice for Lorenzen Wright, until cops hit the jackpot in Lorenzen's home state of Mississippi.
Authorities located the murder weapon in a lake near Walnut, Mississippi.
If she didn't get in touch with him, it was automatically, I think she began to be mistrustful. And then from that to the anger, and eventually to, if I ever caught him with anyone else, I'm gonna MI.